Hey guys, it's been about 3 years since I did my first backpacking trip up in Michigan. Myself and a group of friends did the Manistee River Loop Trail, and since day one, I've been absolutely hooked and obsessed with backpacking. Now, that first trip, I had no idea what I was doing. Definitely had enough gear, the right gear, but I way overpacked. My backpack was super heavy. I think I was almost at 45 pounds for a weekend trip. And by the end of it, my back and my feet were just killing me. Since then, I've watched quite a few YouTubers to get some ideas of what they have in their backpack, things that they do to help improve their overall experience, as well as talking with some of my friends to get an idea of what they do. So I figured I'd share with you guys the 4 most important backpacking tips that have worked for me personally to improve my backpacking experience. Alright, tip number 1, footwear. When I first started backpacking, I just assumed that hiking boots were the way to go, and I honestly didn't even know trail runners or hiking shoes existed. So I went to a local store, got my sizing right, got a couple shoes fitted, and eventually went online and bought a pair of these. These are a pair of Salomon hiking boots, and I absolutely love these. I still use them, and I've been using them since day one. They offer great ankle support, definitely keep my feet warm in cold, winter camping, which I've done in the past. But over the 3 years, I've definitely noticed some issues with hiking boots in general, and I'd like to share those with you. First being weight. These things are not light. I've picked up some other footwear, trail runners, hiking shoes, and they're significantly lighter holding them than these hiking boots. And when you're hiking, 8 to 10 miles a day, even up to 15 miles, that's going to take a toll over time. And I've noticed after some long stretches with these boots on that my feet and legs are just killing me. Point number 2, drying your boots out. Any experienced backpacker knows that when you're out in the backcountry, your feet are going to get wet. Whether it's doing a stream crossing or it starts raining, feet, socks are going to get wet. And I've noticed with these boots that when they get wet, drying them out just takes forever. I'm talking maybe 2 to 3 days to really get these dried out. We've tried putting rocks in, the campfire and throwing them inside to try and dry them up from the inside, as well as, keeping them in the sun. But I'm not sure if it's just all the extra padding on the top for the ankle support or what, but these things take forever to dry out. And having wet feet is not fun out there. So those are the 2 biggest issues that I've seen with hiking boots in my 3 years. And last year, I tried a couple new things. And let's check them out. These are a Columbia actual backpacking shoe or hiking shoe, if you will. And just picking these up, I can tell a noticeable difference in the weight. These are a lot lighter than that hiking boot. Now, the one knock I do have on these is that I don't know if these actually have the Gore-Tex coating that a lot of footwear has to keep your feet dry and not let water leak in. But these have been pretty good for me. Now, I haven't had the opportunity to actually take these on a backpacking trip, but I've done quite a bit of hiking in these. They're comfortable, and I can really tell after doing some long miles that I'm just not as sore afterwards, and I think it's due to them just being so much lighter than these hiking boots. That brings me to my last piece of gear in footwear that I've absolutely fallen in love with, and that's trail runners. Now, for the longest time, I've heard of trail runners, and I kind of just assumed that it was, all your typical thru hikers who are ultralight were going to use these, but I finally tried these. These are the Salomon XA Pro 3Ds, and I'm extremely impressed with these. I managed to get these ones wet on my last trip, had to do a river crossing, and I had water pretty much spill over the ankle support, and my feet were drenched. By the next day, maybe mid-afternoon, I could tell a noticeable difference that these were starting to really dry out. And in my hiking boots, that would not have happened. And obviously, extremely, extremely lightweight. Now, these ones in particular do have the Gore-Tex coating, and I noticed, and maybe it's a difference between wear and tear, because these are brand new, but my feet did not get wet at all outside of water pouring in over the ankle support here. When I did any small stream crossings where, the water would go right over the toe here, absolutely no water. Now, my boots, they've been used quite a bit, and I think they're starting to get some holes in there and stuff, so that could be the culprit. But long story short, I am extremely impressed with these trail runners, and unless I'm doing winter camping, I think I'm going to start rolling with the trail runners permanently. Now, I'd be curious to hear from any of you guys out there what your experience has been winter camping with trail runners. I have not had the opportunity to take these out in cold weather, but I'm interested to see how it would go. I'll probably stick with the boots just because they have that higher ankle support, and I think they'll keep my feet a little bit warmer. But like I said, interested to hear what experience you guys may have, if any. That brings me to point number 2. Trekking poles. Now, it's kind of funny. My wife and I differ completely on trekking poles. She is not a fan. I decided to finally snag these up last year, and I have not looked back since. When I first started backpacking, I saw tons of people with trekking poles, and for whatever reason, I was like, I don't really need these. But since I snagged these, I've noticed a major change in my experience when I'm out backpacking, especially when I get into hilly and mountainous terrain. So these are nice for a couple different reasons. Uphills, inclines. So it's really nice when you have something to kind of lean on to support your weight when you're going on a steep uphill. Having that trekking pole out there to kind of carry a little bit of the load and take that weight off your shoulders is really nice. And on some of these uphills, if you run into snowy conditions or it's raining and you're stepping on leaves and foliage, it's really nice to have that peace of mind that you have some more stabilization to help you if you slip and fall. On the flip side of that are downhills. I've noticed personally when I do downhills, I notice a lot of wear and tear on my knees. Just that pressure and all that weight coming down on my knees. After a long day's hike, I can definitely notice some soreness in my knees. And again, having these trekking poles to kind of bear some of that load and impact when I'm going downhill has been really nice. I've noticed after some longer hikes that my legs are just not nearly as sore as they were when I didn't have trekking poles. Another great value with trekking poles is trail crossings, river crossings. When you're going to go into one of these crossings, you're going to be stepping on stones that are probably slippery. They may not have good footing. You can't really see them sometimes, and you don't know what's beneath you. And having these on both sides to kind of stabilize you when you're going through a creek crossing is a great way to stay safe and stay out of the water. I had a personal experience in Wyoming where I didn't have trekking poles at that time, and I did a creek crossing and slipped on a rock and fell right in. Very scary experience, and I'm pretty sure if I would have had trekking poles, that wouldn't have happened. Now, the last point I'd like to bring up with trekking poles is multi-purpose functionality. So the talk of the town in the backpacking community for the past couple of years has been non-freestanding tents. I can't tell you how many reviews I've seen out there on the Z-Packs, Duplex, and other non-freestanding tents. Now, if you do have one, you're obviously going to need a trekking pole or some type of pole to pitch your tent. They don't have tent poles anymore. So if you already have trekking poles, may want to consider those types of tents because you're already carrying that weight. It's a little bit of weight savings having that multi-purpose functionality available to you. So just some food for thought. By the way, these are the Cascade Mountain Tech brand. A buddy and myself snagged these up at Costco. I think it was a 2-pack for $80. and highly recommend. These are carbon fiber, so they're nice and lightweight. Got that cork handle too, keeps it nice and lightweight. These have been pretty good trekking poles so far. So if you and your wife or you and your friend are looking for a pair of trekking poles, go check out Costco and see if they're still out there. Now that brings me to tip number 3. Now this one is something I've really been trying to focus on this past year because it's something that I was extremely guilty of when I first started backpacking, and that's don't pack your fears. What I mean by not packing your fears is when I first started backpacking, I literally had an item in my bag for every different situation that might come up. I had 2 headlamps in my backpack in case one headlamp went bad or I ran out of batteries. I had Tums, I had Tylenol, I had bandages for an army, I had ankle braces, I had everything, you name it. And I have a couple items over here that I'm going to share with you that I pulled out of my pack. But I'm not saying it's bad to be prepared for any situation that might come up. But when you're doing these weekend trips, you're doing a loop hike, there's other people out there. A lot of the times you're not necessarily going to have a use for a lot of this stuff. So maybe take a look at what's in your pack one of these days and look at the items that are in there and see how many times you've actually used these on your more recent trips and if it's something you might be able to pull out of your bag. So let's go back to what I said I pulled out of my pack and let's take a look. Camp suds. Alright, so this is pretty cool stuff. This is pretty much soap. And you can use this to take like a lake bath, or you can use it to clean out your cooking pot, cooking utensils. But this is a 4-ounce bottle, and you can see here that I have barely made a dent in this thing, and I've had this for about 10 or 15 backpacking trips now. Now again, 4 ounces, and even on the back it says use sparingly. A couple drops of this stuff actually goes a long way. So what I will be doing is putting this into a smaller container and just taking a little bit. I really don't need this whole thing. And honestly, I really haven't even used this at all on my last few trips, so I might not bring it all together. Second item. This is a good one. Seam sealer. You can't really get a good shot of that. Seam sealer for your tent. I've owned this ever since I've had camping gear for it's probably been about 15 years now, and I have never ever used this. And personally, I feel like if you need to seal the seams of your tent in the backcountry, you got bigger problems. Another 2 ounces here, so we're at 6 ounces total, just with 2 items. Last but not least, emergency blanket. Now, I am on the fence with this. I do think there is definite use cases for this if you're out winter camping. Especially up here north, the temperatures can get well below 20 degrees, well below freezing. And having this as an extra layer to prevent like hypothermia or something could actually be really useful. But I've done winter camping a couple times now, and you can tell I still haven't even opened this. So for anybody that's doing summer camping, late spring, early fall, where temperatures may dip to low 50s, high 40s, you're probably not going to need this. Now this one doesn't have a weight, but based on feeling, I'm sure this is probably an ounce or 2. So just those 3 items alone, about half a pound of weight pulled out of my pack. So again, maybe take a look at the items that you have in your pack and evaluate and see what you've used recently, if you've even used them at all. That brings me to my last point, number 4. And it kind of ties in with the weight loss theme here, and that's clothing. Now, this is the clothing bag, my spare clothes, these are not what I actually wore while hiking, from my last backpacking trip. Now, I am going to contradict myself because I still have a problem where I overpack on clothing, and it's something that I'm trying to work on. But let's take a look at what I have here. Ooh, still got that campfire aroma to it. Alright, extra pair of underwear. Now, I always bring an extra pair of underwear, and I never use them. There's been maybe 1 or 2 times on an extended trip where I was out for about 5 days where I actually used them. But for your typical weekend trips, at least personal preference, I don't end up using them. So I will not be bringing those along next time. Extra shirt. Go Tigers. Again, I seem to pack these every single time and never use the extra shirt. So I will not be packing those with me in the future. Now these last two, I am on the fence about. This is kind of like a long johns, pants and long sleeve shirt that are made by, I believe, Under Armour. And I will say with these, they're really nice to have when it comes to layering in winter camping. Layering when you're winter camping is extremely critical to staying warm and actually staying dry as well. So when I'm winter camping, highly recommend these. But I did bring these on my last backpacking trip, and it did not get lower than the 40s. So did not really have a need for these, and won't be packing them this year until it's wintertime. And the last item, I'm not even on the fence with these. I would definitely bring these, and that's an extra pair of socks. I think going forward when it comes to clothing, I'm really only going to be bringing an extra pair of socks. I can't stress enough how important it is to have an extra pair of hiking socks to relieve your feet after a day of hiking in wet socks. Getting your feet to dry out, warm up, and keep them healthy is crucial to having a good backpacking experience. If you stay in wet feet, you're going to have issues with your feet, and you're probably going to have a bad time. It also gives you the ability to dry out your wet socks, obviously. So I will be packing those, and I'm going to try, and maybe in the next trip, that's the only piece of clothing, spare clothing, that I'll be bringing with me. So that pretty much wraps it up. Those are the 4 most important tips that I've at least picked up over my first 3 years backpacking. Really hope you guys got something out of this, but feel free to share in the comment section below what you guys have learned since you guys first started backpacking. I'd love to read your responses and hear what works for you guys so that we can share that with other people out there. Hope you guys really enjoyed the video, and I'll check back in later. Last but not least, though, and this is what I think I will be moving forward to permanently, are trekking shoes. Trekking shoes. Trekking shoes. Is that what they're called? Trekking shoes? So, just another way that you can kind of multi-use your... Multi-use? Use your tools in multiple different ways out in